Black Hand Death. Let's find out more about this bizarre incident. Tonight, on Project Algerine. Sometimes, there are events which transpire which are so shocking and unusual, they become difficult for a city to forget. It's these events which eventually become the local folklore. Many would become used in the tales they taught to children, in the hopes that they would not suffer the same dark fate in which many of these stories end. Take for example, this story dating all the way back to 1911. This is the story of Black Hand Death. In the early morning hours of February 8, 1911, a local milkman named Louis Wadlinger hears strange chiseling sounds along his route on West 19th Street, just across from the Erie Cemetery. Around noon that same day, a couple of women were walking through the Erie Cemetery, when they happened upon the mausoleum of the late industrialist William L. Scott. The large bronze doors of the mausoleum were left partially open, and the women slowly approached closer, to take a look inside. The women make a grisly discovery. The tomb has been opened, and the bodies have been removed from their caskets, with one body missing entirely. The body was that of William L. Scott's sister-in-law, Anna McCullum. The Erie Police Department was called into action, and the first thing they did was notify the daughter of the late William L. Scott. Annie Wainwright Scott was the wife of prominent lawyer Charles Strong. The Strongs lived in a large mansion at the corner of West 6th and Peach Street. The home today now belongs to Gannon University. With her husband currently away on business, Annie begins to take matters into her own hands. She telephones a Pittsburgh detective agency that her husband had used few years earlier. Private Detective Gilbert Perkins makes his way from Pittsburgh to Erie, along with his partner Mr. Franklin, arriving from Philadelphia. The pair of detectives check themselves into the Reed House, located on the corner of 6th and French, on February 11th. The Reed House was Erie's most distinguished hotel at the time. The pair hired a large group of men, and even brought in a pack of bloodhounds from Indiana. That's about the time when things took an even darker turn. The very next day, Annie Strong meets with Detective Perkins, who immediately believes the Strongs are in great danger. Perkins reiterates to Annie again that these are desperate men, and that they may want to do harm to both her and her husband Charles. On the morning of February 12th, a bullet was fired through the office window of Charles Strong. The very next day Mr. Strong, who had since returned home from business, receives one of the first of two letters sent to the Strongs. The letter said to leave $50,000 at 31st and Pennsylvania Avenue, on the night of February 29th at 12 midnight. Otherwise we will blow up your mausoleum. The letter also said, if you bring any police on the 29th, my men will be forced to shoot them. The letter was signed Black Hand Death. Perkins notices the letter is torn on one side, and tells the Strongs he believes those responsible will send another letter, with the corresponding torn piece, matching up with the paper from the first. Perkins insists that Annie and Charles must have made some very powerful enemies. The Strongs both came from very wealthy families. Both families were led by shrewd businessmen, which tend to make a lot of enemies over time. But this time, it's something completely different. The following morning, Perkins makes his way across the park from his hotel to the post office. He meets with the postmaster of Erie, Mr. Sobel. He shows Mr. Sobel the letter and wants the post office to be on the lookout for more. Mr. Sobel comments about the spelling errors, and believes the culprits to be incompetent and illiterate. The very next day, the Strongs receive their second letter. This letter, much like the first, was full of misspelled words and jumbled phrases. The threat, however, was still very real. This letter threatened to blow their brains out. With a ransom deadline fastly approaching, Perkins suggests the Strongs pay the ransom and be done with it. He stressed that this would be the fastest way to end this ordeal, and retrieve the missing remains of Mrs. McCullum. On February 23, a third letter arrived at the Erie police station, addressed to the chief. And if the police were not previously aware of this extortion attempt on the Strongs, they are well aware of it now. It's ransom night in Erie, and the clock is ticking down to 0. Would the Strongs pony up and pay the ransom? Will the mausoleum be blown up if the ransom is not paid? Will further attempts be made on the Strongs' lives after tonight? It's believed that the stress caused by these events affected both Annie and Charles in different ways. Seeing your father's grave desecrated isn't going to do any good for any relationship. When it came down to it, the Strongs didn't pay the $50,000 ransom. Instead, the federal government got involved, because the letters were being sent through the mail system. It's believed that the postmaster in Erie, Mr. Sobel, became suspicious when Perkins came to see him. Knowing the letters were in violation of federal law, an investigation had been started. On April 13, the United States Postal Authorities ordered both the arrest of Mr. Perkins, who had fled to Indianapolis, and Mr. Franklin, who was back in Philadelphia. What neither man knew was that the people controlling the estate of the late William L. Scott had hired their own set of investigators after learning of the mausoleum burglary, and were conducting their own parallel investigation, along with the feds. At the trial for the two men, Franklin confessed to being the one who wrote the letters, while Perkins continued to proclaim his innocence. Both men were sent to prison for using the federal mail system in their extortion attempt. The other team of investigators had discovered that the body of Mrs. McCullum had not been removed from the mausoleum after all. At some point during the mausoleum burglary, her remains were somehow transferred into another nearby coffin. The extortion attempt really took a toll on the Strongs' relationship. They continued to drift further apart over the coming years, as Annie remained in the 6th Street home while Charles moved into his summer estate, on the west bank of Presque Isle Bay. Things were never really the same again after that. Some believed the Strongs suffered from a curse. Perhaps we'll never know. You've been watching Black Hand Death on Project Algeria.